Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for a deep descent into survival strategy. Specifically, what happens when a military organization decides that the only way to save a civilization is to sacrifice the childhoods of 75 six-year-olds.
That's really the core tension of our sources today, isn't it? We're exploring the Human Covenant War, but through the lens of its most, let's say, desperate invention, the Spartan-II program.
Right.
This is a story about the ultimate moral compromise made by the UNSC, creating these unstoppable soldiers who are actually meant to fight internal rebellions. But of course, they ended up being humanity's only hope against this external extinction-level threat.
And our sources, which include everything from detailed operational logs to internal O&I memos, that's the Office of Naval Intelligence, and even Dr. Halsey's personal journals, they paint this picture of a universe balanced on a razor's edge. So this deep dive is really our shortcut to understanding the technological and, I guess, the human costs of fighting a war, where years of constant brutal defeats have left humanity staring into a void.
And our mission today is to uncover the chilling origins of these Spartan-Ts, the intellectual architecture behind their creation, the brutal training regimen, the technological marvels that turn them into legends. I mean, the MGO-9 armor.
Of course.
And the immense constant cost of this survival strategy.
And right at the center of this narrative is the figure who became the face of resistance, a man known only by his designation, John 117. We're tracking his journey from a boy with, these preternatural reflexes to humanity's literal last defense.
Yeah, and the story doesn't start with aliens and starships. It starts with civil war and a moral dilemma.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this and explore the internal conflicts that birthed the Spartan Project in the first place.
What's truly fascinating, and I think it's often overlooked, is that the creation of the Spartan-Ts was entirely disconnected from the alien threat.
Right. It had nothing to do with the Covenant.
Nothing. The program was designed to solve an existential problem within the UNSC's own territory.
That's the shocking takeaway from the earliest documents. The architect, Dr. Catherine Elizabeth Halsey, this brilliant civilian specialist working within the confines of military necessity, she saw the data. She projected that without a definitive, surgically precise intervention, the vast network of human colonies faced a massive rebellion within 20 years.
And you have to understand, the outer colonies were getting restless. They were demanding self-governance, and the military response was often, it was heavy-handed, which was only making things worse.
Escalating the tension.
Exactly. So Halsey reasoned that a conventional war against their own colonies would lead to just unacceptable civilian losses. It would fracture humanity completely. So her solution, Project Spartan-II, was meant to be this force of genetically and physically perfected super soldiers.
Capable of executing pinpoint, decisive missions to neutralize rebel leadership without all that collateral damage.
Right. And this framework leads directly to her deep, recorded moral conflict. It's hard to reconcile the genius of the scientist with the pragmatism of the kidnapper.
Oh, absolutely. Her journal entries reveal this profound discomfort. She's acting for what she termed the greater good, but she acknowledges she was revolted by what she saw in her own actions.
She rationalized it mathematically. It's that cold. To save billions of human lives, she had to condemn what she called a tiny handful of children, a cohort of 75 six-year-olds, to suffering.
The moral scale was just tipped towards mass survival, regardless of the individual cost.
That is the weight she carried. The belief that this one horrific decision was the only way to avoid total human collapse, years before the Covenant even showed up on the radar.
And the method for picking these chosen few wasn't, standard military recruitment. It was about identifying these specific, incredibly rare biological and behavioral markers.
Absolutely. The documents show the process started with this sophisticated genetic mapping. We have specific records detailing the surveillance mission in 2517. Halsey, accompanied by a Lieutenant Junior Grade Jacob Keyes, traveled out near the Eridanus star system.
And Keyes, at this point, he's just a young officer. He recorded his deployment as little more than babysitting an eccentric civilian scientist. He was completely oblivious to the gravity of what was happening.
He had no idea. And their target, a 6-year-old boy, designation John. The field observation notes of this moment they're pure gold.
They are. They found him in the middle of this rough-and-tumble game of King of the Hill.
And this wasn't some organized sport. This was raw dominance in action. The sources describe John defending the crest of this hill fiercely. When he was challenged, he demonstrated just extraordinary physical aggression, blocking, strong-arming. And when one boy grabbed him, John tossed him down the hillside like a toy.
Right. He used kicks, punches, even bites, fighting relentlessly until his peers just gave up. Halsey wasn't looking for kindness. She was looking for a preternatural will to dominate and survive.
But the critical moment, the absolute confirmation of his aptitude, came with what's known as the coin test.
This part is amazing.
So Halsey approaches the boy near a sandpit. She takes an old quarter and tosses it high into the air, making sure it had maximum spin. She needed to test two things: his raw reaction speed and his cognitive processing under pressure.
And John, he tracks the coin with what was described as a strange distant gaze, just complete hyperfocus.
And he doesn't wait for it to fall. He snaps his hand out, snatches the quarter midair, and without any hesitation, shouts, "Eagle!"
You called it right.
He called it right.
Yeah.
And that moment, the ability to catch a spinning object traveling at high velocity and correctly identify its state, that sealed his fate. Halsey's internal debate was whether he had such incredible perceptive aptitude that he literally saw which side was up before his hand closed on it.
Or if he just had the subconscious predictive power to choose the outcome.
Exactly. Either explanation confirmed he was operating on a completely different biological timescale than a normal human child.
So the immediate consequence was the conscription. Halsey officially used Naval Code 45812 to declare the children's 75 subjects as essential military assets. They were pulled from their homes, replaced with flash clones that were designed to die from natural causes shortly after to keep the cover story.
And you can imagine the 6-year-olds were just exhausted, traumatized, and deeply confused when they were pulled out of cryosleep at the training facility.
And the secrecy was immediate and absolute. We talked about Lieutenant Keyes being there for the recruitment.
Yeah.
Once he witnessed Halsey successfully identify and conscript John and the others, and maybe started to understand the sheer monstrous nature of the project, he instantly became a security liability.
Oh, a huge one. And the response from ONI was textbook internal security. Keyes was instantly reassigned, given a battlefield commission to full lieutenant, and posted to the destroyer Magellan.
This rapid removal and promotion, it served two purposes, didn't it? It rewarded him for his silence, and it moved him far, far away from the operation.
It just reinforces the extreme sensitivity and the deep state secrecy required to protect the Spartan-II program from being exposed, even within the UNSC's own upper echelons.
It demonstrates that from its very first day, the Spartan program was treated less like a military project and more like a protected state secret with profound political ramifications.
Totally.
So once conscripted, these children are transported to their training facility and immediately thrust into this harsh, unforgiving regimen. It's designed to eliminate any trace of their previous lives. They had to be broken down to be built back up.
And the man chosen to run this psychological and physical gauntlet was Chief Petty Officer Franklin Mendez. Mendez was the definition of unyielding. His approach was brutalist, enforcing discipline not just with words, but with a titanium baton, forcing the children to function as if they all were machines.
Let's just detail the relentless nature of this for a moment. Our sources record how John was often awakened, not by a gentle alarm, but by a painful electric shock delivered directly through his bare feet to the base of his spine. And this was followed by mandatory immediate exercise. Running before dawn, counting off 100 jumping jacks, that kind of thing.
Mendez established the rules instantly. One boy, Samuel, he hesitated for just a split second after being told to count off. Mendez's baton whipped out, striking him sharply in the stomach.
He made it clear. Hesitation was failure, and failure meant pain.
Exactly. The children quickly learned that compliance and physical adaptation were just non-negotiable prerequisites for survival.
But this immense pressure cooker wasn't just about discipline, it was also about forcing cooperation. And this is where the early critical bonds were formed, particularly the trio that would become the core of Blue Team.
Right, and we see this play out during the Ring the Bell challenge.
This challenge was so ingenious. It was a complex obstacle course built around a huge tower with a brass bell at the top. The rules were simple. The first team to ring the bell secured the prize, a dinner of roast turkey, gravy, and mashed potatoes, while the losing teams went hungry.
And hunger became the ultimate motivator.
John, paired with Sam and Kelly, immediately recognized that the predetermined course of bridges and ladders was a deliberate choke point. It was designed to induce failure.
And they displayed this early tactical synergy. Kelly, already demonstrating her incredible natural speed, the sources describe her running like the wolves he had seen on their early training films. She just sprints away from the chaos.
Meanwhile, John and Sam spot the shortcut, a basket and rope system on the opposite side of the tower, far from the main congestion.
So Kelly quickly secures the basket, and the three of them use this combined effort, John's strength, Sam's size, and Kelly's speed, to hoist themselves up, win the challenge, and secure their meal.
And their friendship was forged right there, in that moment. Not through affection, but through mutual tactical brilliance and shared survival.
That brilliance was tested again during the wilderness test at age 8. Mendez dropped the children into a hostile, remote wilderness with a terrifying twist. The last trainee to reach the extraction point would be left behind.
But John, even at 8 years old, he possessed this inherent moral structure that just rejected individualistic survival. He immediately gathered his squad, his command was firm, no one's being left behind, we're going to figure a way to get all of us out.
He showed real leadership, taking fragments of maps from his teammates and combining them into a collective route plan.
But Mendez had one more layer to his test. When they reached the extraction point, they saw 6 men waiting near the dropship ramp. They weren't in UNSC uniform, they were in civilian clothes.
And John, showing immense situational awareness, immediately knew they weren't friendly. He and Sam noticed the men carried stun batons and displayed intent to inflict actual harm, particularly targeting Sam.
And John correctly concluded that Mendez, for all his brutality, would never intentionally harm one of us.
Right, which meant the aggressors were likely local insurgents hired to test the squad's combat readiness.
So John orchestrated the response perfectly. Kelly acted as the swift bait, luring the first guard away. Sam, feigning an injury, drew the second guard in close. And when that guard raised his baton to strike Sam, the rest of the squad ambushed the men from the woods, using what they had, rocks and fists and boots.
They neutralized the threat completely. They demonstrated not just survival instinct, but tactical ingenuity far beyond their years.
And this success confirmed John's command capacity, resulting in Halsey's swift observation to Mendez. I think that's obvious, Chief. Make him a squad leader.
He had proven he valued the mission and the team.
They proved their tactical superiority, but the ultimate physical test, the horrific event that officially forged them into Spartans, was the augmentation crucible in 2525 when they reached age 14.
Yeah, and this is where the price of the project moves from psychological distress to just physical devastation. The procedures were designed to give them a 300% increase in reflex speed through what was called superconducting fibrification of neural dendrites.
Which basically means making their nervous system process information and transmit signals at lightning speed.
Right. But the risks were catastrophic. They faced severe possibilities of neurological damage, including crippling syndromes like Parkinson's and Fletcher's. The process involved injecting these complex experimental biological compounds.
And the devastating reality hit immediately. The casualty rate was immense.
30 candidates died during the process. Their bodies just couldn't handle the chemical shock and biological overdrive. A dozen more suffered critical permanent injuries.
We have records of Fadad ending up in a wheelchair, shaking uncontrollably, permanently disabled. Others, like Kirk and Renee, were rendered vegetative and confined to gel tanks, barely recognizable as human.
I mean, the psychological impact on the survivors, you can't overstate it. They woke up feeling impossibly strong and fast, but they were surrounded by the casualties of their own transformation.
And Mendez, demonstrating the brutal utilitarian philosophy of the program, holds a ceremony for the dead. He commits the ash canisters to space, emphasizing the difference between a life spent, which meant dying while fulfilling the mission, and a life wasted, meaning dying in vain.
This philosophy focused only on utility to find their existence.
And as John was sedated for his own surgery, Dr. Halsey offered her final, desperate instruction. It's a plea laden with all the guilt and desperation of the program. I'll tell you how to win, John. You have to survive.
She placed the entire weight of the program, and by extension humanity, on his small shoulders. He had to succeed, or the sacrifice of those 30 children meant nothing.
Once augmented and before the rollout of their full armor, the surviving Spartans were immediately thrust into real combat trials, and their training was instantly validated. The earliest operational reports confirmed they were practically unstoppable on the ground.
They were using a blend of speed, strength, and just superior small unit tactics. We get a perfect illustration of their effectiveness during a detailed cliff battle scenario against early Covenant ground forces, mostly grunts.
The Spartans established total control by using a spiderweb pattern of Lotus anti-tank mines. These are pressure-activated, high-explosive devices, and the Spartans used their superior speed to deploy them in these complex patterns that just caught the enemy completely off guard.
But the true test of their adapt or die training came when aerial forces arrived. Banshee flyers, these sleek and swift Covenant air targets, engaged them, deploying plasma bolts that turned the sandstone into globules of molten glass.
The Covenant weapons were terrifyingly hot.
So the Spartans, facing this unexpected aerial threat, initiated what they called the Theta maneuver. They quickly rappelled down the cliff face while improvising their countermeasures. They used what are called fugaces steel barrels. They quickly filled with napalm and shredded casings.
A fugas is basically a giant improvised fragmentation and incendiary grenade launcher.
Exactly. They were originally meant for clearing dense concentrations of ground troops, but the Spartans, rappelling down the cliff, lit them off as massive anti-air flares.
And the result was graphic. It caused a hell of a barbecue out of anything that got in their way, sending 5 flaming banshees arcing into the ocean below.
That sequence highlights that while the Covenant had advanced weaponry, the Spartans' combined intelligence and tactical improvisation could temporarily offset the technical gap.
But here's the grim contrast. Despite the Spartans always winning on the ground in these small skirmishes, humanity was rapidly losing the larger war.
Precisely. The Covenant possessed overwhelming technological superiority in space warfare. And the sources describe the horrifying reality of what happens when the Covenant win an orbital engagement, the glassing of planets.
And we should be clear, this isn't just heavy bombardment, it's total environmental annihilation.
Worlds were physically scorched. Their lakes, rivers, entire oceans vaporized into steam. The atmosphere was often boiled away, leaving the planet's surface an immense sheet of glassy smooth and glowing red-hot magma and fused silicate.
Where a paradise once stood, there was only a dead, glowing orb.
And humanity learned about its staggering technological inferiority during the very first confirmed contact at the colony of Harvest in 2525. Admiral Stanforth's briefing paints this clear picture of dread. The Covenant vessels used pulse lasers, not continuous beams, but rapid, hyper-focused energy bursts that cause human titanium armor plating to instantly boil away.
They also deployed superheated plasma weapons, which just punched through the human energy shields that existed at the time. And on top of that, the Covenant ships shimmered with this semi-transparent silver coating, confirming the existence of advanced reflective energy shields far beyond anything the UNSC had.
But what stands out in the records, I think, is the chilling context of the engagement. The alien vessel held its fire initially. It allowed the UNSC scout force to attempt communication. It was only when humanity tried to talk that the Covenant launched their first devastating attack.
When the Covenant finally responded, they did so in our language, in English, confirming they had been observing and studying us for some time.
And the broadcast was a declaration of absolute ideological war. Your destruction is the will of the gods, and we are their instrument.
This was not a resource dispute, it was a religious purge. It made any possibility of peace non-existent.
Before that Covenant threat fully dominated the narrative, the Spartans performed one final crucial mission designed for their original purpose, the Eridanus Insurgency Mission. This was a deep cover operation targeting a Colonel Robert Watts, a major rebel figure.
ONI wanted Watts alive. He was critical for rooting out potential traitors within FleetCom. The Spartans infiltrated using these incredible covert tactics, writing a diplomatic shuttle, and then transferring to the rebel base while hiding inside a blackwater storage tank aboard a transport vessel, the Nylund.
The execution was flawless. Fred used specialized log breakers. Kelly administered precision sedative injections. They used high-tech descent rigs. John's own efficiency was cold and immediate. In one sequence, he eliminated 5 guards with 5 quick rounds, leaving 5 bodies hitting the floor almost simultaneously.
They captured Watts alive and clean.
But if we connect this to the earlier philosophy of the program, this mission forced John to confront the ethical line he was being asked to cross. He observed the dock workers and civilians on the asteroid, none of whom were designated military targets, but who were killed during the infiltration.
And he grappled with the necessity of these deaths. He realized that his training commanded immediate obedience over internal speculation. He concluded that doubt was a luxury he couldn't afford.
The mission was complete. The orders were followed. This absolute military focus, eliminating doubt to ensure mission success, was the perfect result of Mendez's brutality. It shows that the augmentation had created a mind, not just a body, perfectly suited for war.
The augmentation created super soldiers, but it was the Mjolnir armor that transformed the Spartans from elite commandos into something mythic, a fusion of flesh and machine. And we need to remember how fast John was operating before he even put on the suit.
The internal physiological changes were astounding. John noted he was permanently out of calibration with normal reality. Simple 20-kilogram weights felt too light for resistance. He could easily calculate gravity and acceleration in real time.
His reaction time was formally estimated at 20 milliseconds, which put him leagues ahead of the fastest human combat pilot.
And here's a fascinating detail. The sources note that he struggled with complex calculus and physics equations before his augmentation. Afterwards, he could spontaneously run complex calculations and rederive basic physics equations in his head.
So the process didn't just enhance his muscle response, it unlocked hidden cognitive potential.
This brings us to the Mjolnir Markfeed, the technological crown jewel. It was the result of massive investment and iteration, moving past previous power-hungry failures. The Mark V was constructed from a multi-layer alloy shell for immense strength, layered with a refractive coating specifically engineered to disperse incoming Covenant energy weapon attacks.
And inside, the system was built for biological efficiency. It featured a crucial gel-filled layer that regulated temperature, acted as a shock absorber, and automatically adjusted density to meet the Spartans' movements.
But the true genius was the neural interface, an onboard computer integrated directly with the Spartan's neural implant.
Yeah.
So the suit didn't merely cover the Spartan, it became a symbiotic extension of their nervous system.
Right. When the Spartan moved, the suit's motor system moved milliseconds before the muscle contraction, amplifying the physical force exponentially.
To ensure the Spartans were prepared for all possibilities, and, let's be honest, to justify the project's immense cost, O&I staged the infamous ODST test.
Ah, yes. This test was designed to see how the Spartans would react to hostile fire from highly trained UNSC allies, the orbital draught shock troopers.
4 of the toughest, shaven-headed ODSTs, already considered the elite of the elite, were ordered to challenge John in a gymnasium setting. And to John, seeing these heavily armed figures in a secured area, displaying aggressive intent, it triggered an immediate training protocol.
He classified them instantly as a threat, and his training protocol, drilled into him by Mendez, was clear: neutralize the threat.
We have to pause here because this is a core moment of ethical failure within the UNSC.
The records are blunt. John moved with terrifying augmented speed and strength. He neutralized the 4 troopers in moments. The ODSTs were left crumpled on the ground, either unconscious or dead.
He dropped a weight bar that, to his enhanced perception, seemed to fall too slowly. This just demonstrated that a Spartan, acting purely on protocol, was physically dangerous to any human, even their allies. And the implication is critical for you, the listener. Did John face disciplinary action for killing or gravely injuring UNSC soldiers? The sources confirm O&I simply covered it up.
So this incident reinforced the idea that the Spartan-IIs were untouchable assets. They were operating above the standard military code, solidifying their role as perfect, ruthless instruments of the state.
And here's where the narrative twists again. Facing the reality of Covenant warfare, the Mark V armor wasn't sufficient. Dr. Halsey had to integrate alien technology to keep the Spartans competitive, leading to massive upgrades in 2552.
The first major addition was the energy shields. Halsey successfully replicated and significantly improved upon the reflective energy shield technology used by Covenant jackals, those often annoying shielded skirmishers.
Yeah, this new armor provided full-body energy coverage, efficiently dissipating plasma and pulse laser energy. Crucially, the field was concentrated around the body, but expertly tapered down to less than a millimeter at the hands,
Which allowed the Spartans to retain maximum dexterity for holding weapons and manipulating objects, but it forced them to rethink everything about how they fought. They were now fighting inside their own protective bubble.
The second and most significant upgrade was the integration of the AI, Cortana. Now, this AI was created using a radical, highly classified method. It was modeled after a cloned brain of Dr. Halsey herself.
The host refers to this moment poetically, calling Cortana sprung from Dr. Halsey's mind, like Athena from the head of Zeus.
A perfect description. This AI was then housed within a new layer of superconductor material within the armor itself. Cortana gave the Master Chief the analytical and strategic capacity of a fully operational, ship-borne AI.
And her function was immediate and critical, providing advanced tactical and strategic intelligence, infiltrating Covenant systems, translating alien languages in real time, and constantly syncing and adjusting the Spartans' performance.
The ultimate proof of this man-machine symbiosis was demonstrated during a final run of the old Ring the Bell course. Now wearing the full Mjolnir Mark V and carrying a heavy chain gun, John ran the half-kilometer stretch in an astonishing 17 seconds flat.
And Cortana was the difference maker. She assisted John's aim, adjusting the targeting reticle to sync perfectly with the heavy weapon, allowing him to neutralize simulated heavy weapons emplacements with impossible accuracy while running at top speed.
When John rang the bell, Halsey, watching the telemetry, just exclaimed, "Magnificent."
And Cortana, with a voice full of personality and mischief, added, "And no, you couldn't have done it without me. The fusion was complete."
But triumph often precedes tragedy in this war, doesn't it? This technological validation was immediately followed by a profound, defining tragedy during a mission to destroy a Covenant ship threatening the testing facility, a mission that introduced the concept of the life spent.
John, Kelly, and Sam were the strike team. They successfully boarded the Covenant vessel using thruster packs attached to their Engineer suits, rigging C-12 warheads inside the ship's reactor room.
As the countdown began, though, Sam revealed the devastating truth. A plasma bolt, likely during the infiltration, had breached his suit's outer layers. The breach meant his armor had lost containment.
So if he used his thruster pack to leave the ship, he would die instantly from massive decompression. He was trapped.
And Sam, the strongest Spartan and one of John's oldest friends, he understood the military reality instantly. He ordered John and Kelly to evacuate, insisting that he remain behind with the C-12 warheads to hold off incoming enemy forces until the timers detonated.
The emotional weight in the sources here is just palpable. John felt he would rather die with a friend than leave him behind.
But he had to prioritize the mission, destroying the Covenant threat, and uphold Mendez's philosophy of a life spent. He followed Sam's orders, setting an example for the rest of the Spartans, that survival of the mission, and ultimately humanity, superseded any individual life, even his best friends.
Sam's sacrifice was the ultimate confirmation that the cost of humanity's survival was absolute.
As the war progressed, humanity was forced to evolve its strategy rapidly. And we moved from the tragic sacrifice of a Spartan to the audacious brilliance of a non-augmented human leader, Captain Jacob Keyes.
Right. Keyes, the lieutenant junior grade who had begrudgingly assisted in John's recruitment all those years ago, emerged as a brilliant and audacious tactician. His defining moment, the one that got him promoted to captain, was the engagement at Sigma Octantis IV,
where he was severely outgunned 4 heavy Covenant ships against his single light frigate, the Iroquois.
He knew he couldn't win by fighting conventionally, so he orchestrated an explosive evasion tactic that was considered suicidal. He ordered a Lieutenant Hekoa to fire a nuclear Shiva warhead, a massive multi-megaton fusion device, directly at an incoming Covenant plasma torpedo.
And a plasma torpedo was traveling at immense speed. Keyes waited a crucial heartbeat after the Shiva was launched. Then, he hit the emergency lateral thrusters, violently throwing the Iroquois to port, just narrowly escaping the subsequent explosion.
The resulting massive nuclear detonation occurred precisely between the two forces. The incoming plasma torpedoes, which were trailing the Iroquois, they lazily pushed by the force of the nuclear explosion and impacted the other Covenant ships that were following.
It destroyed one of the frigates outright and severely damaged another. It was a monumental risk, betting the entire ship on a few milliseconds of thruster response, but it demonstrated that audacious unconventional tactics could, on rare occasions, trump the Covenant's massive technological disparity.
And this incident immediately reinforced the critical necessity of the Cole Protocol, General Order 098831A1. Because UNSC ships were often captured or destroyed with their sensitive navigation data intact, the protocol mandated absolute secrecy regarding human population centers.
We should define that for the listener, as its importance is paramount. The Cole Protocol required all UNSC vessels entering slipstream space, that's the method of interstellar travel, to use randomized vectors not directed toward Earth or any major human colony.
Furthermore, and this is the chilling part, every ship had mandated self-destruct mechanisms to be activated if capture was imminent.
No Covenant force could ever be allowed to discover the location of Earth.
What's fascinating about the Sigma Octantis operation is that it revealed the Covenant weren't just engaged in mindless religious destruction, they were seeking something specific.
When the Spartans infiltrated the surface of Sigma Octantis IV, they found these gigantic armored Covenant troops scanning an obscure artifact in a museum. A piece of granite glittered with unusual ruby inclusions. They were using an infrared pulse laser to transmit data from the rock.
So the Covenant were clearly engaged in a high-priority search for knowledge.
Dr. Halsey analyzed the findings back at the massive military complex on Reach, and she discovered that the unique pattern of the ruby inclusions matched an intercepted signal that had previously defied all UNSC cryptoanalysis.
Her conclusion was startling. The data embedded in the artifact was likely from a precursor race or perhaps another entirely unknown alien race. The Covenant were using these artifacts as navigation keys.
And the general staff hated the idea. They deemed the possibility of fighting two hostile alien forces simultaneously as utterly ridiculous.
But the knowledge gained from this artifact, though critical, it arrived too late to save humanity's main stronghold. By August 2552, the war had reached its final, most devastating phase. The Covenant fleet, an overwhelming force of over 300 capital ships, massed at the edge of the Reach system.
The defensive Reach, a fortress world and the home of the Spartan program, became a brutal final stand. The sources just paint a picture of total military commitment, but against impossible odds.
And the final desperate mission commenced amidst the orbital firestorm. Captain Keyes ordered the Pillar of Autumn, a heavily refitted cruiser, to escape immediately. He was implementing the Cole Protocol, destroy all remaining NAV data at Reach Station Gamma before jumping into slipspace on a completely randomized blind vector.
John, Linda, and James were assigned to secure the station and destroy the NAV database core. The fight was conducted in the terrifying vacuum of the space dock against elite Covenant warriors, the Elites.
They fought through zero-G corridors, plasma bolts just searing the metal around them.
And the mission was paid for with immediate human cost. Linda was struck by a plasma bolt, fatally wounded while securing the exit path. John, realizing she was clinically dead, completed the objective first, shooting the thumb-sized crystal of the NAV database core, shattering it and erasing all navigation data leading to Earth.
He then immediately cryo-froze Linda's body, preserving her remains, perhaps clinging to the hope of future recovery. The mission was a success in its technical objective. Earth's location was safe, but the cost was unbearable.
And when asked by the surviving team if they had succeeded, John replied bitterly, the emotion stark even through his comms.
Yes.
We won.
Meanwhile, Keyes, having successfully escaped the relentless bombardment of Reach, initiated the randomized slipspace jump. They were fleeing into the unknown, trusting the Cole Protocol to keep the Covenant from following.
And here is where the seemingly obscure artifact from Sigma Octantis V pays off. While fleeing in the chaos of slipspace, a journey that distorts time and space, Cortana analyzed the symbols she had scanned from that captured rock.
And she realized the symbols weren't just random etchings, they were star charts. By compensating for thousands of years of stellar drift and complex astrophysical calculations, she finally found a navigational match.
The Covenant weren't using paper maps, they were using ancient alien coordinates.
That information immediately translated into the final fateful decision. The Pillar of Autumn emerged from the blind, randomized slipspace jump to find something utterly impossible, a structure that defied human engineering and physics.
They saw it spinning in space. A colossal artificial ring structure. Cortana confirmed it was artificial, immense in scale, a mosaic of greens, blues, and browns, somehow possessing Earth-normal gravity and atmosphere.
It was the destination the Covenant had been seeking all along.
And Captain Keyes, staring at this immense, impossible ring after fleeing the destruction of humanity's last bastion, uttered the only command possible. It's this acknowledgement of the shift from a defensive war to exploratory necessity. What is that? Then we'd better find out.
So we've tracked the genesis of the Spartan-II from their morally complex origins under Dr. Halsey, that decision to sacrifice a few to save billions, to their terrifying effectiveness in the Mjolnir armor. We've witnessed the brutal reality of the Human Covenant War, where every victory was paid for with immense sacrifice.
Whether it was Sam giving his life in the vacuum of space or Linda falling while defending Earth's coordinates.
Right. The creation of John 1:17 was an act of absolute desperation, and it yielded an unstoppable force tailored for survival.
The internal struggle within the UNSC gave birth to the Spartans, who then went on to fight an external enemy they could never fully defeat in orbit. The knowledge gleaned that the Covenant were following a coded map embedded in ancient artifacts led them directly to this moment.
Having fled a war they could not win at Reach, Captain Keyes and the Master Chief now stand before a massive artificial ring structure.
And this brings us to the ultimate provocative question for you, the learner, to consider as we conclude this deep dive.
What if this colossal ring structure is not the ultimate weapon humanity needs to win the war, but rather the very ancient, mysterious reason the Covenant started fighting humanity in the first place? What hidden power does this structure hold that justifies a galactic crusade of annihilation?